It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss. Now let's welcome your host, Ann Ganguza.
Hey everyone, welcome to the VO Boss Podcast and the Boss Superpower Series. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza, and I'm here with the lovely Lau Lapides.
Yay! Nice to be back.
Hi, Lau.
As always. Hi, Annie.
Lau, you know, I'm wearing my red today.
You're looking all red and crimson-y and like ready to rock and roll.
Like a red flag. I'm so punny sometimes. So now, what are we going to talk about today? Let's talk about maybe red flags and or scams. I know that they are a popular topic, but I think it's something that we need to watch out for in the industry, these scams that go around and ask us to submit our voices, and then gosh only knows what happens after that. Typically, it has something to do with money. But Lau, what are your thoughts about scams and how we can avoid them as bosses?
Well, totally prevalent. We get it. It's in every industry. And I have to tell you, and I know you've been experiencing this too, in the last few years, there have been an onslaught of hackers and slackers and scammers and bammers and everything you call them, they're around and they are literally coming at you. So as a business owner, you have to be ready for it. They're literally trying to get through your firewalls, whether it's your website, your software. I have, unfortunately, a resident new stalker who leaves me voicemails. You got to be ready for that. You got to take the personalization and emotion out of it and protect
yourself and protect your business. Absolutely. So I know that there's some great, first of all, resources online that you can find out. I mean, the number one thing is if you, let's say, get an email or a phone call and it's asking you to submit something personal like your voice file or an audio file or give money, the first thing that I think you can do is to take action is to Google. Google is your friend, and Google here. Google's your friend because a lot of times, especially even if you get like a phone call, right, you can put in the phone number and you can see if it's a phone scam, or you can put in the subject of the email and see if you can find anything out there that talks about it. There might be discussions in Reddit. There might be discussions on Facebook that say, yes, this is a scam. Don't believe it. But the thing of it is to make sure if something doesn't feel right or something is off, then definitely take the first step and research it. Go to Google. That's what I would say would be your first step. And then there are lots of other tips and tricks that we have for you bosses out there. Lau, what would you say is your first and foremost line of defense if you feel you've been taken advantage of or are being scammed?
Right. There's a bunch of stuff we can do. And by the way, I would take what Annie said even a step further, and I would make sure you're talking to your inner circle of your coaches, your uppers in the industry, people who are in the know, because I have found, Annie, that if I go to Google, or a lot of you may be now using DuckDuckGo, only because Google has a lot of online drones that go after you now. So if you use DuckDuckGo and you're on there, you're going to find they do have websites oftentimes, and they do look legitimate, and they lift that information. It's very easy to make a landing page. So you have to really talk to people in the industry that really would know to really cross-check. I always say go with your gut instinct. Your gut instinct is telling you something. Listen to it. One of the big scams, Annie, that is out there is the overpayment scam. This is big in our industry. That's where the client
that's been going on
sends you, right? Well, let's describe what it is for people who don't know what it is. It's a client sends you money, right? And they say that they're expecting to ask you to send the overpayment to someone else. It's like this, we used to call them chain scams, right? Don't do anything of the sort. Never accept money, never send money.
Never send money to somebody who claims to be your client, number one. I mean.
Never. I mean, that's a red flag right there, right? That's your red flag right there.
So basically, they've sent you money, but it's a check that is not legit.
Yes, exactly.
So when they ask you to send money back, then you basically are just giving them money. The overpayment, you are giving them money for nothing because they've given you a fraudulent check.
Hello. And what about the urgency one? This plays on your your emotions. This is the sense of urgency, making you feel like you're under pressure, right? The client pressures you to like handle the payment processing really fast because there's a reason to handle it really fast. And they want to scramble your brain. They want to get you confused and discombobulated so you're not thinking straight and you're just acting because you may feel like, oh, I want that job. It sounds great. Or you're a little desperate. You haven't worked in a while. Sounds like a great job. You don't want to miss out on it.
Yeah.
So they'll put that urgency on it for you. So be very, very careful of that.
And that urgency can be to submit voice files of which they will not pay you for.
Correct.
That goes back to law. This is like a business practice. For me, for many, many years, when I negotiate a job with a client, especially a new client that I'm not familiar with, I will always ask for payment up front. It is not a big thing to ask. As a matter of fact, the way that I word it in my email is payment is appreciated and preferred up front. Otherwise, other options are available upon request. And so for a new client, I will request that they pay me up front before I even send them an audio file. And I'll tell you what, 99.9% of the time, unless it's a large client that has to go through a process to pay, like through purchase orders or something like that, I will get payment. And I will request payment electronically because that way I can guarantee that the money lands in my account first. Then I will send them files. And so therefore, when it's requested up front after you've negotiated, and then it's a statement that is right on my email that says, payment in full appreciated, made to my Venmo or my PayPal, and then basically other options available upon request. And I get it. Guys, I get it. I've been doing this for years. It's amazing how people are like, well, charge 50%. I'm like, no, just ask for the full thing up front. Now, if somebody doesn't want to give you the full thing up front, then get on the phone with them. Make sure there's a human being at the other end of the line. This is not all done through email. These are some tips that I've learned over the years, right? Is make sure you've got a human at the other end of the line and check out the business. Again, there is a way to research those things online. Is there a business? Is there a phone number? At the end of the email, is there a signature file that has a company name, a way to contact them via email, via phone? I don't care how old school I sound, bosses. I get on the phone and I call.
Yeah, you need to contact them.
I make sure there's a real person at the other end of the line. What about you?
Because here's the other thing, too. There's a double reason why you should contact them, especially by phone if they're going to give you a phone number. And that is if it's a scam, they need to know about it. So they need to know their identity has been stolen, and then they can put a post out online that people are coming at you using our name and our identity, and it's not us.
Yes, absolutely.
And they will really appreciate it. So there's the double reason to protect yourself, but also to protect that company because sometimes they're just not going to know about it, right?
Sometimes they're stealing the identity of the company. Absolutely.
Right.
And,
one of my clients fell into this one, unfortunately, and that was she was already knee-deep into a job. And she had submitted a bunch, like 10 pages, 15 pages on a long form. And there were no edits.
Yeah.
That's a red flag right there. So unfortunately, she had already submitted something and she already saw, oh, there are no edits. There's something wrong with that job. There's something strange. Also, if you see in your breakdown, you're going to get, say, a form letter online asking you to be a VO for AI or for this or for that. It could be for anything, right? And the numbers they use are weird. Look at weird numbers. Like we're going to use this from 3.5 to 11.5 months. You know, the numbers look strange. They look off.
Oh, that's interesting. I would not have thought about that.
Yeah, strange numbers, like strange configurations of numbers. We used to look for grammar and lowercase, but now we can't do it anymore because they're going through ChatGPT. So everything is formatted fairly well. How about this one, you guys? How about this one? They're deeply, deeply focused and over-focused on the payment versus the job.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Payment. It's all about getting the money quick. Right?
Yes,
so they can
getting
get
that
in and
money
get out,
quick.
right? Because they really don't care about your audio files. Or they care about the audio files and then they just ghost you and won't pay you. And that's a different type of a scam. Typically that kind of falls within what kind of clients are you working with. And again, I always say educate yourself on the client that is contacting you as soon as you get an email. That's typically how we get inquiries, right? We'll get an email or we'll get a direct message from somebody.
Yes.
Make sure that they have a legitimate domain on the end of their contact information.
And what if they have a whole bunch of domains that lead you in circles, different emails, different domains, different that confuse you?
Or a domain that doesn't exist for a company. It could just be somebody at gmail.com or somebody at hotmail.com. I would always look at those people twice, because if they're a legitimate company, they should have a company domain. It should be yada, yada, yada.com. And if they don't have that, then I would be very suspect. If they do not include a phone number, I would be suspect. If they don't have a real signature file, I would be very suspect. And as Law said, back in the day, we used to look for grammatical errors, and now that's less common. Now you've got to look at more people that are stealing identities, and or maybe people who just don't put a valid domain at their email address, or there's no way to contact them, even if they have a website. I can't stand when I go to a website and I can't find a phone number to contact someone.
Right.
That to me...
Well, that's unfortunately more common,
that
too.
That to me is a red flag.
Yeah, and here's the problem with technology is it's getting so good that certain elements are cut out of our industry that used to be there. Like a lot of the bigger companies we work with do not provide you even customer service numbers anymore because they don't have staff to answer phones. So everything is a bot now. So you could be contacted by a bot. You don't know they're a bot. The bot is scheduled to get information. So never give your information out online. No account numbers, no bank numbers, no social security, nothing.
I'm going to say that any legitimate company will have a phone number, or at least any legitimate company will provide that, so that
they're harder to find, Annie. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you a direct example. We're on the Calendly link. Whether you're using Acuity or Calendly, I dare you to find a phone number for them. And they are a legit global service. They're calendars that we use all the time. You use them. We use them all the time.
But I'm going to say that's dedicated to maybe software, right? I'm just going to say if you've got a company with people that maybe you're doing a corporate or an e-learning, right?
Yeah, go after it.
Yeah, you should absolutely be able to find a way to contact them. I mean, even like I buy a lot of clothing online, just saying. Is that a surprise? And I have a customer service issue. I want to be able to talk to a human being, right? Yeah, and you're right.
Exactly.
It is getting more and more difficult to find. However, I'm going to say that your chances are better if you do have a phone number that you can contact a human being at the other end of the line.
Of course. But remember, I still caution people, because I ran into this myself, for the banking fraudsters, because identity theft is number one in the U.S. So for the banking, they'll send you something that looks exactly like Bank of America, exactly like PayPal.
Absolutely.
And they'll say, you owe us $500. Here's our invoice.
Yeah, click here to resolve.
Click here. Don't click on anything. Never click on anything. And if you call them, just know you may be calling someone that they hired within their fraud service. So I suggest, if at all possible, go to a location. Go to the location. If it's a bank or financial or whatever, you should be able to find a location where you can talk to someone live, like Annie's talking about, to try to get some sort of vetting on it, because you don't know. They look exactly real. They totally look real. And how about the big game show host one now?
Yes, the game show host.
The assignment for the game show host, right? Everyone's getting excited about that because you've been assigned to be a game show host.
Absolutely.
No, you haven't. The next step is going to be asking you for account information.
Yes, exactly. And
right?
that's
been
going on for years and years. And so what they do is they appeal to our emotions. They appeal to our, my God, you've got a great job. You've been selected. I even at one point got contacted by Disney, who said that they researched me online and wanted me
They found you online.
And wanted me to audition. And I'm like, I'm not so sure about this.
I don't think so. I mean, as good as you all are, and I'm sure even if you have excellent SEO.
Well, that's an even bigger target. You're an even bigger target.
That's a bigger target. That's a bigger target. Don't fall into, we found you online. I want you to audition. Well, go through my agent. But
I will say that I am very much an online business, and I do have a lot of people that contact me for legit jobs through my website and through my social media channels and through referrals. And again, those are the ones that I trust if they're coming through referrals, right? Because then I basically, sure, I have the job, but I always have the ability to contact someone or speak to them.
Oh, that's totally different. I mean, very rarely do I, and I think I have pretty good visibility online, very rarely do I have? I found you online. That would be specifically through like Google Ads purchased, SEO. They'll get information. They'll be like a wannabe client of a coaching service or something like that. And you can feel that out very, very quickly. But when it comes to giving you a job as a talent, beware. Keep those flags up. How about the interview, Annie? Have you seen the online interviews?
The online interviews where I've heard of them vaguely.
They invite you on to like Signal or Telegram, Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp. Be careful of WhatsApp, you guys. Now, I love WhatsApp because it's free. It's an international community that can get on there for free who cannot text you. So I love it. We have it for our Talent Inner Circle members. That being said, do not jump on WhatsApp for interviews with anyone until you have vetted them, because that's a very common scam platform. It's just known to be that. So just be careful. Be aware of that. The language you have to be careful of, too. Like, does it look weird?
Yeah.
Even if it's gone through ChatGPT, like, does it look strange, the sentence?
Does it sound strange?
It's not formed well, right?
Yes. If English is not the first language, right? So be careful of that.
Right.
Well, first of all, I'm just going to say that clients that are international, and I have a lot of international clients, typically the international clients that I work with are very well-spoken, well-versed in English because they've worked with clients in the United States before. So if they are not as well-versed, I'll investigate them more because, number one, I want to make sure I get paid. There are certain clients that are known to not pay a whole lot for voiceover, and they will give you lots and lots of promises for lots of work. A lot of e-learning companies, and I'm gonna mention a lot of e-learning companies that are not based in the United States that want to hire you for as little money as possible per word. I'm a big person on e-learning that I don't quote per word, but I know a lot of people do. And here's my philosophy is that if somebody's asking you for a particular number per word, then probably, right, they're hiring you, right? You're a company, a curriculum developers or an e-learning company that's hiring the voice talent. So you're not the first line of paying. I'm just going to say because they're hiring you. And so they want to negotiate the cheapest price because they don't want to pay a lot. When I deal with e-learning clients, I deal with companies directly and I'm able to negotiate a much higher rate. So I don't typically quote on per word. But if somebody starts asking me for my price per word, I will get a little more rigorous about my investigation because I want to make sure that I'm not going to be haggling over 5 cents or a penny or a word. And then also I'm going to make sure that I have a point of contact that I am able to contact either via email and that they get back to me right away or that I can text them and even text. If it's a new client, I'm going to try to see if I can call them or have a Zoom call.
Sure, absolutely.
Or have a Zoom call.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would also be careful of wiring. Like,
wiring money.
Wiring is tough nowadays. My partner won't do it anymore. They won't do it anymore. They just won't. They don't trust it. So they don't want to do that anymore. They'll do PayPal. They'll do Venmo. They'll do any other way, but they won't do that. And I mean, needless to say, don't ever send money out for any reason ever. Don't send it out unless you're sending your commission cut to your particular agent. That's different.
Well, now you've got a lot of people who get very frantic when they say they want me to provide my bank account number and my routing number, and I don't think this is legit. Guys, that is legit. If a company needs to pay you and wants to pay you ACH and wants to pay you right into your bank account, you will need to supply your bank account information. And for what it's worth, when I investigated it, many years ago, there's nothing dangerous about providing your account number. The bank itself has security in place, so you can provide a full account number to somebody if they request it and a routing number.
So, all right, so I have a question about that. So let's say you haven't worked with a company. They've reached out to you. You want to work with them. What kinds of practices, Annie, do you use to vet them? Do you ask them for references? Do you ask them for clients? I know most legitimate companies that I know of and have worked with have actually put their client lists out. They're on their website. So I could really reach out to them and say, hey, do you know of this company? Have you worked with them? Whether I reach the right person or not is another thing. But the point is, what do you do to vet a company?
Well, that's a great question. So the first thing I do is I research them online. I do. I research them online. I go to their website. I make sure that they have contact information on their website. If they don't, I'll ask the person that emailed me or reached out to me for their contact information. And then I'll say, but I can't find a website or I can't find any contact information. Do you have a point of contact in case I have questions about the project? right? And it becomes very much about, I'm interested because I want to be able to get a hold of someone in case I have questions so that I can service them better, right? So it doesn't appear that I'm paranoid or not trusting, but I am asking in order to serve them better. So I make sure they have a website. And if they don't have a website, then I'm suspicious because who doesn't have a website these days?
Right.
If they don't have a website, maybe they're very small. And if they're very small, they might have budget issues. And then I want to make sure that they're going to pay me in full prior to my job start, like I request, and that they will pay me electronically. There will be no checks. Or if there is a check, I won't start or deliver the job until I've cashed the check. And that's very rarely the case. I don't know. When's the last time you wrote a check?
Almost never. Very rarely.
So people who can't pay via any sort of electronic method these days or through a credit card, that kind of a thing, then you're protected by all of that. And so, definitely research, definitely point of contact. And my last point is like literally talking to someone. And there's a lot to be said for a company's brand and a company's longevity, right? So how long have they been in business? Am I familiar with them? As you mentioned, what other companies have they dealt with? Have they dealt with other people? I don't necessarily ask for references right away because if it's a corporate entity, I might ask around the groups to see if anybody's worked with the company before. And yes, there's an actual group before Nava became very involved called the Red Flags Group. It's a Facebook group started by Dave Cavassier and is still around where when we all had questions or we were all like, hey, have you heard of this? We would post in that group. It's a wonderful group. It's still there. And there are some other groups like I think Vopreneur, Mark Scott, actually, people will ask in that group if there's been contact or if people have worked with that company. And again, it's something you can talk to your accountability buddies or colleagues in the industry to see if they've worked with them.
Yeah, and I would add on, too, your coaches. Yeah. So if you have a coach or a coaching team or have coached, your coaches really should know about this stuff. If they don't know about this stuff, they should be willing to reach out and find out about it. If they're not, that would be a red flag on the coach.
Absolutely.
Because the coach should really be in the know. Even if you haven't worked with them for a while, they should be in the know. I'll give you an example. This student that I had in class not too long ago, she wrote to me and she said, hey, I want to go FICOR, and here are my reasons. And I need help. How do I do it? Well, if I said, I don't know, I have no idea what it is, and I don't know, go figure it out, I would have a red flag about her looking at me saying that and saying, well, let me just find out for you. Let me figure it out because I need to know myself. I actually know exactly how to do it. But my point is that would take me aback. Like, who am I working with? Who's my teacher? You know what I mean? Because this is a very huge issue right now in the union. So it's very relevant and current.
Right. And that's another great aspect to a scammer, right? How do you know you're working with a legitimate coach and or demo producer? And I'm going to say any coach worth their weight is going to offer a consult, a free consult, so that you can kind of get a feel. And again, that's something where you're meeting with them on Zoom or you're meeting with them on the phone, or you can kind of have a back and forth with that coach so that you can get an idea of their style. You're open to ask any questions. And also, again, I think that word of mouth is really valid there. I think a coach should have previous student references and or work and or testimonials on there. And you can get a lot of knowledge from that. So don't just spend thousands of dollars before you do your own investigation and research and talk to a potential coach and or demo producer.
And be reasonable about weighing it out. If you're asking your coach, who's been in your coach based out of New York, well, what do you know about Mary Jane's out in Fiscal, Wisconsin? It's not reasonable that they're going to know the answer to that. But what do you know about joining the union these days? They should really know some of those answers to resource you. So anything that's of a national or international, now everything's international, but national base, they should be in the know, even on the most basic level, or at least be able to resource you to the places you can go.
Yeah, they're not just voiceover. They should be business. They should also understand the business and the marketplace and the industry enough to be able to guide you. Yeah,
Right.
So.
I always come back to your survival instinct. You have a gut instinct for a reason. Like, listen to your gut. What's the worst that happens? You lose a job. You miss out on a job. So what?
Yeah.
That's the worst that happens. You may have saved yourself from a lot of heartache and a lot of hell by jumping into it because you really wanted it or were desperate for it when you knew it was going against your gut instinct. So always go with your gut instinct.
And I get a lot of people who are like, okay, so I did a job and I didn't get paid. I can tell you I've been in this industry over 17 years. I have never not gotten paid. Never.
Wow.
Never not gotten paid.
That's lucky. Wow.
Well, is it lucky or is it me vetting my clients? I'm going to
be.
say yes, I vetted my clients. If I found somebody that I thought was a little bit, I don't know if I want to work with them, if I was hesitant, I chose not to work with them. And I'm very fortunate. Again, it comes down to I requested that money up front. I'm going to say that I feel like that saved me in many, many ways, is having that just that simple statement
So
on my
smart.
quote that says, payment in full is greatly appreciated and available via my PayPal account to anna@ganguza.com. And basically, that is it. I never have anybody really contest it. And if they do contest it, it's because they're a large company that I'm very familiar with, that I'm able to get in contact with the people in purchasing who can give me a PO and who can give me the net terms of payment, which sometimes can be 90 days.
Now, have you ever had a company sign that and say, yeah, we're going to give you whatever, 58% upfront or 100% upfront and not come through and still do the job?
No, I've always gotten either paid up front or I've gotten my payment. I've never, ever had that happen. Yes, I'm fortunate, but I also think it has a lot to do with me being savvy and not necessarily picking up clients that are questionable.
Right. Gotcha.
And I do have clients where I signed contracts, they went out of business. You know what I mean? After so many years. But ultimately, because I had been working with them for so long, either transferred me to the new owners, right? And then I might have had issues with the new owners. But again, I've never, where I didn't get the job or I didn't get the offer. Let's say I worked with a company for a very long time and then my point of contact changed, right? That happens quite a bit when you work with clients over a period of many years. Your point of contact changes and then maybe you don't have that job anymore because they've brought in somebody new and maybe they want somebody cheaper and it's time to change voices. Either way. So that's happened to me, which I think has happened to anybody. But thankfully, I've always gotten paid. And knock on wood, I'm grateful. And again, just keep my eyes and ears peeled. Now, if you are working with an agent, right, that's what your agent does, right? Your agent negotiates those contracts for you. Now, Lau, have you ever had at a point where one of your clients didn't come through and pay and then you weren't able to pay the talent?
No, I've never witnessed that or seen that happen, not within our agency. But I've had it happen in my coaching business. I've had it happen under Lau Lapides Studios a number of times through the years.
Where you've had a student that didn't pay you?
Yeah, or whatever, or someone came for a first time.
Right.
They looked super legit. They took an hour. This was in the days in person, right? And then they just cut out. They just never paid for it. And then I learned, okay, so I have to get it up front. That's okay.
I mean,
That's
for coaching services.
The learning lessons, I call it learning money. I tried not to get angry and hold on to that because I said that's the nature of some people. So you have to just know your audience.
I did have where, let's say, offering services through VO Peeps, where I used to run events and people would come to events and say, I will pay you later, right? Can I come? Is there a spot available? Can I come? And yes, being young in the business, sure, you can come and then ghost. And then not pay. That has happened not often because after that, I got very smart. And it's gotten to the point where I host events that are non-refundable at this point.
Well, that's important, actually, because everyone would pull out. Everyone would pull out for some reason.
Even for sickness, right? I try to be very, like with coaching, if somebody gets sick, I will be very understanding and lenient about that.
Yeah.
But now with events, when I run events and I have to sell spots, even if somebody gets sick, I'm sorry, I have a no refund policy. And that has developed over 15 years of doing events.
I do find, though, Annie, honestly, because I've been an event organizer for a long time, most people take no issue with
exactly.
that. They know, hey, listen, I punked out. I didn't make it.
Absolutely.
It's all right. And they just forget about it. Very rarely do I have people fighting because that would be like they would think that they're in the right.
I have people that want credit. They get sick and then they want credit. And sometimes
some
do that,
some big events do that, but I don't think it's a good policy because I think it gives people an out.
Yes, agreed. Guys, be educated, be smart, and be savvy, and try to avoid those being taken for granted and being scammed. Great episode, Law.
Great episode.
Good
Great
stuff.
episode.
All right. I'm going to give a great big shout out to somebody I have been with for years and years and years, and that is IPDTL. I love IPDTL. Still continue to actually do all of my coaching sessions via IPDTL. So many advantages to that. It's a great quality, fantastic audio quality. My students can record their sessions. It's amazing. I have playback. It's super easy. Guys, you can find out more at IPDTL.com. Connect and network like bosses. Law, thank you so much. It's been amazing. Bosses, have a great week.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
See you next week.
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Ann Ganguza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.
and corporate narration. And even just working with her on my e-learning reads has made me a better voice actor when it comes to the corporate narration work that I get in. And I can hear the difference from the first day I coached with her up until today when we had our session. And I'm really excited to see how much more I'm going to keep growing and keep outsmarting all the AI bots, because she'll give you tips on that as well, of how not to sound like you're just reading or how not to sound like an AI voice, but actually sound like a human. I love that Anne cares about her students and their success because she's such a good teacher and she's a teacher at heart. And so you know when you're going to work with her, you're going to do your best, and it might really push you sometimes, but when you can look back on your growth and see just how far you've come, you know, all the tears, the blood, sweat, and tears is going to be worth it. So thank you, Anne, for taking your time with me and helping me get past those moments of frustration to finally understand and grow as an actor. I really appreciate it.